everyone, it's Christy from Miss Fultz's Corner, and it is April, so it's National Poetry Month, and in honor of that, I have created a poetry pack that I wanted to share with you and kind of walk you through. So, it's called Writing a Poem a Day, and what it is 17 poems, and you teach one poem a day during your writing workshop time. And what you have, each poem has its own page, and it includes the title of the poem, so this one's haiku, rules for writing the poem that kind of teaches the pattern, and then an example of the poem. And each example is school themed, and so the students can practice that together like in a mini lesson, and then afterward it's kind of your choice. You could either go on and give them the pages by making copies of them, or you could have students write those in their own poetry notebook, which is how I personally do it in my classroom. So I'll show you what that looks like. Each student decides a theme for their poems, and all of their poems every day are going to circle around that theme. So as you can tell in my example, I used the beach. Sometimes they use sports or holidays or school or their family, anything else that they feel like they can commit to for all 17 days of the unit. So what I have them do on the inside cover, they keep the table of contents page, and we track the poems we're learning all 17 days. Then, instead of giving them the copies, I have them take notes while I'm teaching, and they label it with the date, and they have the poem, and they copy the rules. And then what I do is I have them glue in an example. That seems to save time, and it makes sure they get an accurate copy to work from. So ahead of time, I go on and photocopy examples of the poems that they're going to use every day. And they just glue those right into their notebook. Then behind their rule page, every day, they try it. So here we have a haiku try it. And they just kind of play with the poem and their ideas, sticking with their theme, and write for that day. And this continues every day for 17 days. So if you want to teach poetry for Poetry Month, but you're not sure what to get started, this poetry pack is probably a good choice for you. And I'll show you what else is included in that. In addition to all of the different poems, and you have 17 of those, at the end, you get more poetry examples. So if they're not quite getting the theme yet, here's a list of some other poems I use, other poetry books that we use during our unit, and you also have a directions page. And I included samples of my notebook and their notebooks. And also, here's the best part, the way they publish. And I want to show you examples of that too. At the end of our unit, every student ends up with their own poetry book. And it has their poems. We bind it on our school machine. I let them type the poems. They have a cover and a dedication. And they get a table of contents. And then each student gets to type some of their favorite poems and illustrate those either by hand or with clip art. So each student gets a book that they're really proud of to show what they learned during April. But I also do a class book. So this is an example of our class book. Every student picks their favorite poem and types that up. And then what they do is they illustrate it by hand. I take my little favorite part of their illustration and I copy it on the copier and make it part of our cover, either the front or the back. So that gives them some ownership. And then I have this nice laminated copy for our class book, and each student gets a paper copy to take home too, to show their families what we learned in our room during April's Poetry Month. So if this looks like a product that you could definitely use to jumpstart that poetry unit, you can find it on my blog, missfultzes.blogspot.com. And we would love to see you over at Miss Fultz's Corner.